bronche, that's how we say brunch.
Here's to the ladies who say basic with their lunch.
You want that bochinche?
Paquete con pinche, you hear what they said?
Not too busy, glasses clinking.
Aquí en esta mesa se respeta como ñón.
Si la copa está llena, yo te doy la bendición.
So what if we get ratchet?
We from the Bronx.
That's it.
Don't get it twisted.
We be going to Manhattan. Be a queen.
Be a boss.
Ladies who brunch and poppin' off.
Hey, we pop and pop it off. We pop.
All right. The episode's about to start.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Ladies Who Bronche. I am Julissa.
What's good, everybody? This is Skittles.
And this week, we have a dynamic, phenomenal, talented, beautiful Boricua here with us. Megan, who the fuck are you?
What's up? Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Thanks for being with us.
Yes, this is actually a real great pleasure, and honor to be up in here in the Bronx.
Yes.
With fellow
Yes.
Latinos.
Yes.
Doing the damn thing in our borough.
Yes.
And chilling on a Sunday. And I could walk here. So,
Yeah.
that is a big deal for me.
Yeah.
That is, and oftentimes we have a hard time getting people like wanting to come to the Bronx. And I'm like, first of all, it's a cozy little home. Like, yeah, I would enjoy being here. But I love when people are like, oh yeah, this was super easy for me to get to, because I'm like, see, for all y'all people in Brooklyn and all the other boroughs that make it seem like the Bronx is impossible, it's very possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's cute. You're in a cute area. I like looking out the window. There's a cute view.
Yes.
This is very cozy. And my glass is full. So I
Yes.
encourage everyone to make their way up here.
Yes. So tell us a little bit about yourself and like you're from the Bronx, right?
Yeah.
What else is there to know about Megan?
I'm from the Bronx. I'm first gen Boricua.
Yes.
So, Puerto Rico is really like home for me in the heart. And that's a really big part of who I am. I think oftentimes, people will say, yeah, I'm this, I'm that. But for me, like, my identity is definitely very much rooted in being a Latina.
Yes.
That's part of who I am and part of my work and the people I love. So, first gen Boricua from the Bronx. I'm a dancer, choreographer, artist, dance educator, and traveler, lover, political.
Yeah.
I like to bitch a lot. I've got a lot of things to complain about, and I try to use my big mouth to really help uplift other people.
I love that.
Yes.
That's like the definition of a Boricua, using our big mouth to uplift or shut down other.
Yes, or check.
Yes.
If anybody need to be checked.
Yeah, I had to check someone this morning.
No, what happened?
So, we kicking off Black History Month.
Yes.
So, my kids are doing a salsa dance to Celia Cruz because
Amazing. She's black.
she's mad black. Like, hello. If anybody's black, it's the Cubanitos, right?
Right.
So she's blackity black, but also she's a queen, and who doesn't like negra? La negra tiene tumbao.
Yeah.
Classic.
So, my black kids that I teach in Harlem lived. They were like, this is a beat, Miss Curie. I was like, word, never dance salsa. These kids have like a 4-minute piece that they learned in 3 days.
Nice.
Yes.
They are slaying boys,
That's how you
girls.
know they loved them.
Yes.
18 kids. So, my mother and me are at breakfast this morning, and she's like, yeah, I showed you a video to someone at work. Y ya tú sabe. I was like, what was said? Why are black kids dancing salsa instead? She goes, yeah, just like that. So I had to check. I was like, well, first of all, we're dancing to it because we wouldn't even have it if it weren't for Africans. We wouldn't have any of the juicy, amazing things in the New World if it weren't for black people, right?
Right.
So we wouldn't have the flow. We wouldn't have the footsteps, the pattern, the footwork. That's all. It's given to us from the Africans.
Yeah.
But also, I think it's important for them to understand the diaspora is so much larger.
Right.
And for me, Black History is not just a month, but as I celebrate the month with them and I rewrite our very whitewashed curriculums, I need them to know the history from North to South and the Caribbeans. So
It's absolutely important. And I talk often about how I learned I was black in college, right? Like, and growing up, I always had this weird thing of like, the black girls were always like, oh, well, you Spanish, right? And I'd be like, oh, well, okay, so I guess I'm not black, but I guess I'm the black version of Spanish people. So like, that's what I thought I was a black version of Spanish people. And I'm like, well, if Koreans and Japanese people can be two completely different cultures, and countries and look alike, then it's okay that I am almost exactly like an African African American, but I'm not African American. I'm not African. I'm just Dominican. I'm a Black Spanish person. And so I learned the term Afro-Latino in college, and back then it wasn't woke enough to know Latinx, so Latinx didn't exist back then, but like that was like eye-opening for me, and that made me take several other Latinx study courses because I was like, I don't know shit. So I ended up minoring in it. And so I say that to say, I think it's important that when we get that knowledge and we're in other spaces, that we infiltrate that, because I elected that class. There was no guarantee that I was going to graduate college and know I was Black, right? You know, I could have very well been 28 years old like I am right now, having people on the internet tell me I'm Afro-Latina. And then imagine how defensive that puts people, because now it's like, well, the internet's trying to teach me about myself, as opposed to you being in a setting, you know what I mean, that's a safe space that's really trying to educate you. So thank you for doing that work, because more of us out here, can we just go to DR together and like go around in cars being like, you're Black, you're Black, you're Black, those like campaign cars.
Like literally you're second in line after Cubans.
Right.
Like I literally won't let anyone who's not my Dominican hairstylist touch my hair.
Right, yeah.
Because folks just don't know what to do with mixed hair.
Yeah.
They're confused.
Yep, absolutely.
No, I feel you. College was very eye-opening, especially with the fraternity life.
That's a whole other.
Yeah, so that was an eye-opening experience for me as well. And then shortly after college, that's when I went natural.
Yes.
And like I had to stop relaxing my curls.
Yeah.
And that was, but it's part of a whole process, right?
Yep.
Undoing
Yeah.
the post-colonial mindset.
Girl, I could go on and on about that hair journey, because that's this whole, just your hair and its identity, it's its own genre. Like, let alone
Literally, chapter 3, 4, and 5.
Yeah, let alone, you know, even like what you were saying, how long it takes for us to fill our lips because we have different lips. Like when we're doing makeup, like all of that stuff.
Anyway, so Megan, we want
important stuff. Anyway.
I didn't mean it like that. We want to start off by asking you, what is your favorite brunch plate when you go out to brunch?
Well, brunch is like the only time that I really feel nostalgic for food because I'm a vegan.
Oh.
And, you know, God, I just miss a good eggs Florentine days. I just love hollandaise sauce. I genuinely miss eggs. I mean, I think if I lived in a different country, a more sustainable country, I would be a vegan who only ate eggs. But now I would say that if I'm at a bougie vegan restaurant, I can get my hands on some like vegan French toast. That's cute. But now it's really not a fun time anymore. All the other meals are, but brunch, I'm going to say like avocado smash.
Yeah.
Avocado smash with like a well-done avocado smash.
Yeah.
Where they like dress it up with lots of interesting things.
Right.
To fill your mouth with flavors while they overcharge you for an avocado smash.
I literally, when you were saying it, the thing that was going through my head was like, and what's crazy is that you can spend $2 for aguacate, and that's expensive for one, right? But this is when it's not on sale. $2 for aguacate. Buy a whole bag of bread and get all the stuff, and you still haven't paid
$20.
you still haven't paid
USD.
$20 for some fucking avocado con pan.
Oh my
Right?
God.
Which is really what it. So Skittles and I last season did a vegan challenge, so we went vegan for a month.
It was rough.
And it was.
I was much more vegetarian. than vegan. And I always say that when I tell people. It
Well,
was
you missed the cheese also.
It was the cheese. It was the, like, I just don't have the discipline to like pick something up and literally look at all the ingredients to make sure that all the ingredients were, you know, plant-based or vegan or whatever. So vegetarian was much more so the easier route for me.
Yeah. And for me, I found myself missing eggs like you're saying. And then the dairy, only because I hated vegan cheese.
Well, next time we hang out, I'm going to put you on. There's a few good companies here. Thank goodness to Brooklyn.
Right.
It's a struggle. There's not a lot of good cheeses in the States. Our vegan movement, in my opinion, kind of lacks.
Surprised.
But there's good creamy cheeses out there where they age the nut milk.
Okay, which
So
then
they're playing
does a
with the
little
same process.
something. Yeah. That I fuck with a little more.
All right, so when you're out to this mediocre brunch, what are you choosing to drink? What is your favorite brunch bebida?
I'm like so basic. I love mimosas.
Yo.
You know what?
I am a
I
faithful.
feel basic and fabulous all the time. Like, unlimited mimosas.
Yeah, I'm faithful to
Yes.
the mimosas. But you have us, so today, you have us drinking something a little interesting. So we do ask all our guests what their favorite drink or what they want to sip on during the episode. And today we took an interesting twist. Today we're drinking kombucha.
Health Aid kombucha.
Well,
Right.
you guys really did it up for me. So I just said kombucha. You went all out with bubbly rosé kombucha that I've never even
Yes.
had.
Wow.
Health
So is
Aid.
Rosé?
Yes.
One of my favorite brands, and they did a great job. But also, this is like the first time I'm drinking after my dry January with y'all today. So
Yes.
I'm a big fan of kombucha, but I love mixing it with booze, actually. Mezcal.
Okay.
Mezcal with a ginger kombucha.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I think that I will take you up on that
Yes.
version. I feel like I do. Actually, maybe I should have spiked this, but whatever. Okay,
We're gonna
because
take
I'm not a big kombucha drinker. I am admittedly not a big kombucha drinker. It's
Yeah.
too vinegary for me sometimes. Maybe it's the fermentation or
That's how I
whatever.
feel sometimes.
Yes.
But-
I can't smell it is the thing. Every time I get a smell, I can't bring myself to it. I'm just like, all right, why? There's other healthy choices I can make in my life.
All right.
Well,
Well, we're gonna
cheers. Let's
We're gonna
cheers
try
with
this kombucha.
and see what our
Bubbly
true
rosé.
appearance.
Don't just hold your breath and just sip on it. Because the
Just
flavor's
hold your
there.
breath.
The flavor's
Just hold
there.
your breath. Okay.
It
Breath
tastes
out.
different.
I'm holding my. Oh, okay, I do.
Very few things smell the way this tastes. Oh no, I don't like your face. You're not into it.
I could just
This
taste it
wasn't that bad.
I told you.
because I didn't smell it. Because I didn't.
Literally.
I feel like the smell is way worse than the actual
But
taste.
did you enjoy this one? Would you give it a shot? No, I'm not gonna-
I would. Okay,
I've
I would do
swallowed better
this.
cum than what this is
Well,
tasting.
sometimes you get
Wow, really?
well, sometimes you get chunks inside
Wow,
of
ew.
this. Yeah. Well, are you screwing vegans because those are the only ones with good tasting cum?
I don't
Oh,
know.
that's a lie. I think that's a lie.
Blasphemy.
I sucked a lot of non-vegan dick. All right, I've sucked a lot of non-vegan dick.
We're just talking about the cum, though.
Yeah.
Just the cum, because it's always lovely until that shit finishes, and then it's like, whoa, I forgot it can also taste like this.
Yeah. No, when it's sour and terrible, it tastes like kombucha. Like I guess
It's
you
the diet, I'm telling you.
No, but I will say this: like compared to other kombucha that I've had in the past, I feel like this is the better tasting one that I've had because, and I've only tasted 2 different kinds because the last kind was in California. But,
Oh yeah.
yeah,
You would drink kombucha in California. That's the spot.
that's the spot for it.
So now that we've talked about swallowing cum, what was it like going out to eat when you were a child? Actually, so let's take it back
To the before days.
Now that we're
before we
talking about
started
swallowing
sucking
gum.
dick.
Well, it's
Bitch, I've been
interesting.
sucking dick since the day I walked through those vaginal doors.
I came out the gate.
Ready. With head first. Head first.
Head first. We are not gonna get through this stuff. Dick is the theme. No, but for real, what was it like going out to eat when you were younger? What was that experience?
It was great. It was strict. And when I go out now, I thank my mother and father for that experience because motherfuckers out here don't know how to take a kid out. So kids don't know how to behave, and then they grow up not knowing how to be in the world, but that's another subject. So for me, I just remember, in our home, like, and I'm sure y'all can relate, Latino kids are to be seen, not heard. And so it was a great time, even though, because I was the youngest, my brothers and I have a 10 and 12 year age gap. So I was like the last batch, but I was always out with adults. So I feel like I got so much information from that experience that then informed who I became, right? So I would be at family dinners listening to all the political talks, all the nonsense, all the inappropriate, like, adult sex talk even. Like, I would just be there like a fly on the wall hearing.
Right.
And I think later on, it fed my obsession and need to, like, connect with humans, listen, and hear people's stories, which is really a big part of my practice as an artist. But it definitely came from, like, all those years of being at family dinners, the youngest one at the table, just eating and listening.
Right.
And it also taught me how to just be in spaces. My parents weren't like, oh, how are you? Are you okay? Nanita? No, they were like, sit down, eat your food. We out for dinner. This is our time. Don't fuck with our time.
Right.
And I just understood like how to understand that everyone had different times and needs. It wasn't that I wasn't gonna get dessert after, or it wasn't that I wasn't gonna get my treat after, but like you had to be at dinner with the familia, and this is our time, and just like chill the fuck out. Don't be acting stupid and crazy.
Right. Don't be embarrassing us out here.
And you could also like, I would imagine, chill too amongst yourself, but you couldn't just be acting like a.
Like you wasn't running around while mom and dad weren't looking. Like that wasn't the green light to get the fuck up.
Right.
Yeah. I feel like there's like this certain mentality sometimes with people who have kids and then they go out with them that like when they are with like family or friends that all of a sudden it becomes the other adult's opportunity or responsibility to watch after
I would know. Yes, it's true.
You have those. Yeah, exactly. All of a sudden, it's like, oh well, like you watch them, I'm gonna be doing, and it's like, where did this?
Yeah,
I was not in the room when you made that.
I did not. I was not part of this decision making process. I don't want to be part of the babysitting process. No, for sure. But I do think that that's important. And I think that even the culture of going out to eat has changed because now that like our generations are having kids, right? I'm very curious to see what the like my friends' kids are going to turn out to be and what the world will look like, because a lot of the way that we were raised does also come with the norms of the islands that we represent. And a lot of that stuff is valuable. Like sometimes I'll be seeing kids on the train and I don't believe in hitting your kids in an abusive way.
Same,
Pero sometimes I'm like, damn,
just like one.
A clean
just
one.
One good cocotazo, you don't need to hit a kid.
My mom, I only have one story of my mom hitting me because it only took one goddamn time for her to hit me.
It took me a few more.
And I will never forget. She hit me with the slides, but back in the day, they used to be like this hard plastic gel. So they weren't like smooth and foamy. And I was watching TV. And I was doing my homework, and my homework was sloppy. And my teacher had sent a note saying that I needed to work on my handwriting. So my mom was like, listen, I need you to not watch TV when you're doing your homework. And I'm like, yeah. My mom, very hard worker. And in the household, she would work, like she would bake cakes and babysit. So I took the opportunity that tal vez sin vergüenza, went to my room, and I sure did watch my TV and do my homework at the same time. When I tell you the next morning when she saw my homework, and she was like, you had the TV on? And I was like, no. What I didn't know is that she had already sneaked and took a peek earlier and saw that I was disobeying her, but didn't take the time to call me out in the moment.
They be shady like that. My mother used to do shit like that all the time.
And then she hit me with the child. It was just a couple clean, but those shits hurt. And I never again. And she's like, that's mentirosa, coño.
Yeah, it's the line they got you.
Yo.
I think had you said you was, she would have just like pulled your hair or your ear.
Right.
That lie.
Yo.
I lied to her face.
See, when my mom, it was that we were going to my aunt's house. My aunt Titi Sonia had a pool. She was the only aunt who had a pool.
Right.
And I had gotten to the point where like I would know that if it was the weekend or the weekday in the summer, we were going to Titi Sonia's house, I was going to be able to go to the pool. And that particular day, I was acting a little ungrateful towards going to visit my aunt and not going to visit the pool. And
oh my God.
When I tell you, my mother had one swift one. Now, I was a big kid, so it was a fist. Not only did she bust my lip, but I also could not go swimming when we got to Titi Sonia's house.
Wow.
And that was the one time.
Never again?
Never again.
For anything.
Because it was
nothing
just like, oh my God.
I used to get...
And my mom's a little cupcake, but like that fist...
It's called a bofeta. My mother used to give them to me when we had the detention meetings, because one time I got busted for forging all the detentions of like a whole school year.
Oh my God.
Yeah, I tried it in Catholic school. They put my mother in for that final...
Damn, in Catholic school, it just gets better and better.
They put my mother in for that meeting. It had added up. I was like, God damn it. I saw that stack on the table. I was like, what are those doing here? They flipped. My mother took them. She said, flip real quick. She goes, wow, they look like your father's handwriting too. Boom! All in one. I didn't even see it. Like, I was ready to take the compliment. Next thing, the hand is coming through the side. Fuacata, I'm bleeding. She's back to flipping through the papers. All them teachers stood like, so do we call someone? So quick, they didn't even know to call it child abuse or not.
Right, or to get on their knees and pray right there.
Esto tu padre lo va a terminar. Yo, when I got home, I was like,
Oh,
Dang,
damn.
it's gonna happen
my
again.
God.
Yeah, so bofeta, un bofeta.
Right, yeah. All right, so when you go out to eat, what's your favorite bochinche topic?
I'm a Gemini, so I got two.
Spoken like a true Gemini, yes.
I got two. I could get down with politics all day, every day. Luckily, most of my friends can, and if they can't, they will. I'm annoying like that. Politics and sex. I'm like so guilty. I can talk about sex all the time.
Yes.
And as you like enter the next phase in your life where like you make new friends, and it comes with career changes or just age, I'm realizing like I think I met all the hoes.
You know what? I also feel like we were fed this idea that like of like prudeness and like you have to be like a saint going into like don't post this on Facebook or don't do this or whatever. And then as we've grown up, you realize like we're just all freaks.
No, I'm saying the opposite. I'm saying I feel like I've met all my hoe friends.
And they ain't no more hoes left.
People be looking at me sideways sometimes like, oh, like they chuckle. I'm like, you're not going to give me a story back?
Right. Like, I'm out here giving you the goods. You ain't got no stories for me.
I'm like, where are my thoughts?
I'm glad that I have not reached that point. And I'm sorry that you have, but I want you to know that you are in a safe space here at Lady Super Brunch. And we are going to hoe out today.
We'll hoe out today. Absolutely.
I feel like well, maybe it depends on the community or the rooms that you're in. But like, I feel like we were fed this mentality that we have to like withhold these like freaky parts of us. But then like, when you don't, like, you realize that everybody else has their sides to them too.
Yep.
Yeah,
I don't sleep on nobody. Everybody had a sex story.
Yeah.
So now we're going to move into our cheers to the lady who's section where we shout out people doing dope shit and dope shit that's going on right now. So I've noticed in entering this new year, and it was happening at the end of 2019, but there has been an explosion of body positivity going on that I am loving. And yes, like Lizzo right now is clearly like one of those champions. And I remember when she went to the basketball game, her ass cheeks was out and it was all controversial because some people were like, that's a little too much. And then others were like, it's not even that it's too much, it's hygiene. And people were kind of like, oh, that's so weird to like sit somewhere where somebody's ass cheeks.
First of all, you could have on the thickest pants and still sweat through the seat.
Exactly.
Hello, summertime's in New York.
Yeah. Hello, MTA trains, right?
Swamp ass.
Folks are not that clean, period. So who are you talking to? You probably don't. Never mind.
Right. And so I remember that was the whole debate when that had exploded. But there's just even in like having somebody who is like Lizzo who can be a champion for these sorts of things. I think that in my adult life, I'm finding like I want to have that same sense of empowerment for myself because, we're constantly around people and like it's nice to have somebody who's like big and famous and has a large platform. But I feel this urge to start loving myself for the sake of also like being that in spaces where there are people where it doesn't need to be Lizzo who's the icon of that, but that we start to feel comfortable. And so that's why I was super excited when Skittles recently actually became an underwear model for a hot minute. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I got contacted by Drew, his name is, and he works with this line called Play Out NYC. I don't know if the NYC is part of the line or if it's just like their Instagram handle, but it's called Play Out, and they're NYC based, and it is a queer owned line that just celebrates body positivity, and their whole idea is like in their advertisements they want to advertise their line on LGBTQIA people, the entire community, but like in every kind of way that we appear. And so the particular shoot that I was invited to do was a plus size shoot where all the models were plus size and queer. And it was just such a cool experience because like you said, I feel like there's this new wave of like body positivity, and it's particularly in our friend group, we've been kind of really focused and like just trying to lead like healthier lifestyles. And so for me, I started out the year kind of strong. Not necessarily, you know, working out every day or doing things, but just like taking baby steps to make better choices, to lead a healthier lifestyle. And so one of the biggest things for me that I'm, you know, that I live with is that, like, I like to advertise that I'm, like, a super confident individual, but then I deal with certain, like, self-esteem issues on the low. And so this was a huge thing for me to just be, like, in front of the camera in underwear, but still able to, like, have a glamorous face on and still feel myself and still, like, live in that moment. And I saw some of the pictures, and I'm so excited for everybody to see them because, like, I feel good about them, you know?
Yes.
And it was just a good experience overall. I feel like everybody who was at the shoot, it was like the energy, the vibe was right. Nobody had like these huge egos or anything. And yeah, it was just fun. It was and like I felt good about the pictures also because the photographer kept saying like, "Oh my God, you came to work. You came to work today."
Yes.
And the
every day.
Every day.
Did you know who he was talking to?
Right.
And the owner of the line was also standing behind the photographer, and they were also like looking at the pictures pop up on the computer and like saying, "I love this one. I love this one. Oh my God, I love this one." So like,
I'm so happy.
I feel good about it, and it was just like a good like thing to start 2020 off.
Yes, yes. And
like that.
I've been steady wearing crop tops, like trying to
Yes.
like wear, and I started sort of like in 2019 a little bit, and I would do the thing where I made sure I had like pants or something that was like up to here, so that if there was like space, you still couldn't see my body, but it appeared. But I'm starting to like get a little more comfortable with my, like I have a chicho on this side that likes to pop up, that pops up more than on this side, and so like I'm like, you know what, chichos, like come get a little life, like come get a little air, you know, and it's interesting because you do see people notice, like and at work too, because of the company I work for, we don't have a dress code, so like I can show up as I am on any given day. So like I could tell, like I'd be in places and people be like, there's a lot of white people at my job, and they just be like looking at me and stuff, and I'd be walking around all jiggly and shit and just perfectly fine. And you're a dancer, Megan, and so like I think that like growing up, I've always loved to dance, but I'm not the best at following choreography, and I think that a lot of the fear in which my stiffness in my body came from this place of feeling like I didn't look beautiful when I was dancing, like I didn't look like a ballerina, and when I was doing certain moves, like, or if I jumped around a lot, like my whole body's shaking.
Well, I'm gonna tell you where that comes from, and you're not alone in that regard. It's because we've not only policed spaces for white bodies, but we've whitewashed concepts for white bodies. So you're not the only person who grew up not feeling beautiful when they dance, and it's because we've only focused on, not just in textbooks and in classrooms and in curriculums, but we associate Eurocentric Western forms as beautiful forms, even though, as they put them in textbooks, all other world dances have existed for far longer, where people dance with body parts that hang out, where people dance where they are smiling and their spines are moving and there's curvature and they use hips, and twerking is actually a dance movement. It's not just on hip-hop videos.
Right.
So you're not alone in that regard, but I
Yeah.
think it's important to note that we all look beautiful when we do dance. So
yeah, and you travel a lot with your dancing. Do
Yeah.
you ever find that there's like either a lack of appreciation in certain areas where you bring your style, or the opposite, where it's like a bigger appreciation because of the presentation of these sort of cultures?
I've only ever experienced opposite. I've only ever
Great.
gotten way more love abroad, especially in Latino communities, which is like the biggest manifestation of mine come to life. Literally, I was just on tour this summer in Ecuador with my dance company for our 8th season, and sold out. Like, I'm talking huge theater, Teatro Sánchez Aguilar in Guayaquil, Ecuador, sold out. Rave reviews, so much love, because I make work for Latino communities. But it was amazing, even like in, wealthier, aristocratic areas, to get the love regardless of where everyone came from.
Right.
So even if I make political things that sort of challenge societal norms, not things, right? I focus on political agendas. these people were like, I could still relate. Mm-hmm. You know, you made a piece about Hurricane Maria in Puerto Rico. We had the hurricane destroy, you know, city of Manta here, and we can relate to natural disasters affecting.
Right.
So no, opposite. I love making work and taking it abroad, especially to Latin countries.
Yes, I love that. I love that.
Oh, can I have some?
And now we're moving into our Tuta Loca Es, where we call motherfuckers out for doing the most. Puerto Rico, Puerto Rico, Puerto Rico. So they finally received the $16 billion in funding, federal funding for disaster relief. However, there have been a shit ton of stipulations that have been placed upon this. They have to create a proposed budget first as to how they're going to be spending all of these funds, so that the money can be tracked. They also cannot pay the $15 an hour minimum wage that people get paid in federally funded projects. They also are not allowed to use the money. They're
like,
also.
I'm sorry. How does that fucking make sense?
I got two more for you.
Federally funded wage. Where does that, like, how does that make sense?
Like, oh, y'all not allowed to pay people with what they should be.
Everybody else is supposed to be promised.
Mind you, 15, and we all know.
What kind of Jim Crow fuckery is that?
And we all know 15 isn't enough to begin with. And not only that, they can't use the funding on the electrical grid system, which right now, obviously, like, electrical grid is important in a moment like this. The whole island was on blackout, yada, yada, yada. They can't use it because apparently there was $2 billion that had already been allocated, but they still haven't even gotten that money to start working on it from Maria. So it's all kind of fucked up. And, you know, White House officials acknowledge that there's electrical issues on the island. However, they really don't think that they need to be releasing any sort of extra funding outside of what they've already promised.
Well,
I don't understand that.
To be fair, if I was the White House and I gave you $2 million? $2 billion?
Well, $2 billion, but they still haven't gotten the $2 billion.
If I put that out there and that shit disappeared, fair, I'm going to be like, nah, we're not spending it on that. But what I want to talk about is when are we voting out these corrupt motherfuckers? Because I don't care if you're going to give me $16 billion in funding. If we are not voting out the people that are abusing and creating the debt and impacting this crisis further, it doesn't matter how much funding you give us, the corruption is still there. Todavía está podrido.
Right.
So,
like,
and we gotta cut the tree down. The root is fucking rotten.
Shouldn't that be like the first place that you look? Like, if all this money is going missing, shouldn't the first people that get penalized are the people that are in charge, rather than the people who are suffering from these natural disasters that they have no control over? And then also, not even to say anything, but before these natural disasters, the island wasn't in a good state anyway. Right. So even if it wasn't for the earthquakes and if it wasn't for Maria, they were still struggling.
Right. And which is to your point of it's about the corruption. And to be clear, the $2 billion, it's not even that it's missing. They just haven't even given us the shit. It's we know that there's an issue, but they haven't released the funds. Once the earthquakes happen, the fact that the funds just got released and it was over 2 weeks from the first earthquake that hit is ridiculous. If this was in and mind you, I'm saying in U.S. soil as though Puerto Rico is not U.S. soil, but let's assume that in the world, the minds of people who don't fucking know anything about this country and how commonwealths work, right? Let's assume they don't consider that American soil. Any one of our 50 states, something like that happened. You think they would have waited 2 weeks to release some fucking funds for emergency relief? Absolutely not.
No. I mean, only if those neighborhoods were covered with brown people.
Yeah. Potentially, but even with because when we look at Katrina, right, the way aid was given during that crisis was also super problematic and had a lot of stipulations to it. But the fact that there is even a level below that can exist, like a way in which you can treat someone worse during a disaster, and it is U.S. territory that we choose to have, mind you, it's not like Puerto Rico and all its history was please, what happens is over time. Then, the island sort of splits on well, do we want to integrate with the states or don't we want to integrate? There's a huge dialogue that happens. And in moments like this, it's...
Well, so if we integrate, can we get our $15 an hour?
Right.
To do a fucking federally funded project?
And it's quite ridiculous, and it really puts a divide on the island and the pressure on the island.
It does.
But it takes the responsibility off of people who can, U.S. citizens. Again, they're also U.S. citizens. I just want to clarify. They're completely U.S. citizens, but for some reason, this separation mentality has allowed not only the government to fully take advantage, but our voting citizens here don't ever think about what's happening on that island as part of their responsibility because they don't think of it as part of our country.
And on that, I'm just going to correct those voting citizens who don't think it's part of their responsibility to remind them that people on the island do not get to vote for the president.
Right.
Do not get to vote for their best interests because they're not considered, because they are not a state. So they do not get to vote on the agendas that impact them. Yet people up in Washington feel it's in their power to decide what they are and are not worth. Mm-hmm. If that's the way this is going to go, release the island and leave them. Let them be dirt broke and poor on their own. We're talking about the oldest existing colony in the whole world. It is the island of Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
It's not any other place in the world. I'm talking since the days of the Taínos.
Yeah.
We're talking about the 1400s.
Yeah.
Since the Spanish, following the U.S., this island has not seen their freedom. I mean,
ever.
Could you imagine what that does to the psyche of a Puerto Rican mentality?
Right.
To assume all this is normal.
Right.
To assume that on February 1st, if you just throw a big party, you have your Renew Year, that it's going to make the problems go away.
And it doesn't. Yeah. Yeah. It's really problematic. And I think that even down to how they teach about Puerto Rico in schools, where hint, hint, they don't. Right. That is how they teach it, is they don't. And so you don't really have a deep understanding. And I even to take it back to this unspoken, the fake Dominican Puerto Rican rivalry, because it's really
so
fake.
Right.
We're like this, but that fakeness really came from just, your immigration policy is different from my immigration policy. And so from a Dominican perspective, it's like, damn, we got to fight, tooth and nail, and we got to wait years and years. Y hay que pedir esta y pedir el otro in order to try to get into this country. And by the way, Trump is also working to make sure that now part of your getting a citizenship means that they get to go into your financials. And if you're not a financially stable person, they can deny you citizenship to the United States of America.
Wow.
Because that will imply that you're probably going to apply for food stamps, Medicaid, and all that shit. And so then, since they don't want people to do that, we don't want poor people.
I'm sorry.
Right?
Nobody's applying. Disculpa. Nobody's applying for food stamps, but middle class Americans in rural America that are starved, living in food deserts, making below minimum wage. Right. Those are the people that need the help from their government, not hardworking Latinos who only know how to work.
Right. And then I hate the way they change the narrative of people who are here undocumented, acting like they're the ones sucking all these aids when they don't qualify for half the shit. Right? And so the face of government aid has always been black and brown, but the biggest recipients have always been white. And so when we going back to Puerto Rico and going back to this aid for a natural disaster, which is not, these people are lazy, these people don't want to do this, bootstraps, none of that shit. It's y'all motherfuckers don't want to hold your corporations accountable, thus climate change, thus tectonic plates moving, thus earthquakes on Puerto Rico, and then Jamaica, by the way, which also happened, right? You know what I mean? And this seismic activity will continue to happen. You know what I mean? And all of this is a result of your greed. Right? It's all, and so the cycle, when you really break it down in that way, it to me is the most infuriating thing to watch and to have to participate in. And participate in the sense of we are working on a relief benefit for Puerto Rico for the earthquakes, right? And so why are we doing that? Because if people aren't doing something, I can't idly sit by as a citizen who has all this information and just let the shit play itself out. I feel the need to activate, but then in reality, and it's not that I wouldn't activate anyway, but I shouldn't have to activate as hard as I'm activating because the resources should just be there. They should just be available to these people, and I should just be able to be let me do a little something extra. They got mad money, but here's a little extra. Let me just send a little care packages with letters because they got all the money and aid they need, but they need a little love. So let me just send some love, right? And now it's I want to send some love, but also a pack of water, some money for this organization because they need so much.
And stuff like that, a pack of water, simple survival shit.
Yeah. Means so much right now. Yeah. Yeah.
The fact that people don't trust the government.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that you have people shipping things to physically bring them to the towns.
Well, also, let's put a pause on that. Because we are not an independent country, everything has to pass through the United States. So we would actually be receiving aid and assistance from our neighboring Latino brothers and sisters a lot faster if we were our own country.
Yeah.
Just like when natural disasters hit other countries of the Latin diaspora, we help one another. Cuba sends their doctors. Other countries send aid, water, you name it. We run to help one another. We don't have that luxury because everything must bypass the United States first, which is why aid gets to us even slower.
Right.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
It's fucked up.
So what do you, Megan, just like in your experience, like if you had some advice for Boricuas here in New York City that are wanting to be supportive, especially those who, you know, are a few generations removed and don't necessarily have that same close relationship with the island where they can be like, oh, my abuela lived there. Some have never been there, but they feel moved to participate in some sort of way. What are the different ways you would encourage people to participate in supporting the island?
I think it's really important to find ways to put, and we briefly touched on this during our pre-bronche discussion, we have to figure out ways to put money back into our community. I'm not going to be the person to tell people how they should or should not behave or feel connected to something. We connect to the diaspora in our own way.
Right.
The diaspora exists not by our choice. So I don't think it's appropriate for me to sort of pressure people. Nobody owes anyone anything. But if people felt like they wanted to help in some way, that could look like many different things, whether going back to contribute to organizations, investing in property before it gets sold to outsiders. That's going to be a real issue soon. But yeah, putting money back into the pool. And we see this in other communities all around the globe.
Yep.
You know, the Jewish diaspora is a real thing. And it remains strong no matter where in the world. You can go to Argentina, you can go to Mexico City, you can come to the United States. And those the Armenian diaspora is so powerful. Look at LA, Iran.
Yep.
You go to any country and these diasporas, you know, they feed their communities so that they can thrive. And I would love to see members of the diaspora come together to make that happen. Like, whether it means creating jobs for each other, employing one another, small businesses that are owned by one another, contributing and funding those. I would love to see that shift happen in any capacity.
Oh my God. Wait, pass the salt?
All right, and now it's time for our plate of the day, our main topic. The Bronx is lit right now, but is it burning? So I wanted to dive a little bit into this conversation around the Bronx, its art and culture, and how gentrification ensues gentefication. Now, gentefication is a term that not everyone is familiar with. Just in around 2016, 2017, the term started sort of bubbling up, and it's meant to define somebody who, does have some sort of tie to the community or was of the community that probably has left, and this could mean going to like college and coming back into the community with this like newfound either wealth or like consciousness and coming in and starting new businesses in back in these spaces. Now, the sort of like line between how some people are like gentrification is good and some people are like gentrification sucks is that sometimes they feel like the consciousness or care to the community isn't always there for these folks, even though they have sometimes been living in this community prior, that they're so disconnected. It's almost like you get up out the hood and then they want to give back to the hood, but is it really about giving back to the hood? Or is it about, oh, I know this area and I know that, gentrification is surrounding it. So I can use the authenticity of my tie to this community in order to build a brand and make mad money out this shit because I can do it here. But in the white spaces, even though I have the knowledge and stuff, I'm not really accepted in those spaces in the same way. So I can't have the same level of success there, but I do have the tools and I have it and I'm going to do it here in my space. But then what does that mean for the people who don't get to leave and are struggling and are still trying to build these same sorts of businesses in these contexts? And now suddenly they become their competitors and are often backed by funders that are coinciding with gentrification and not people who are on the community grassroots trying to do something for the neighborhoods. So I just wanted to unpack that, right? Like, what is happening to the Bronx? Is our culture being sold out in a way, and are we the ones selling it?
Can I just say, in terms, and this is not to like answer anything, but just being a Bronx native, as we all three are, being someone who was born and bred in the Bronx, has lived in several parts of the Bronx, just walking around the Bronx and seeing the gentrification is crazy. It's a weird feeling of like, wow, this beautification really did not exist when I grew up.
Right.
And like this borough and this image that we're building right now really did not exist when we were coming up. And it's almost, in a way, there's a part of me that gets offended.
Yes.
And there was a day where I was driving in the car with my mom, who grew up on Kelly Street. My mom's a South Bronx girl.
Yeah.
And so what's so funny is that I grew up in the northeastern part of the Bronx. I grew up in Co-op City, you know?
Bougie.
Bougie, yeah. And, you know, my mom growing up down there and now me living down there, there was one day we were driving and we saw a coach bus and a crowd of white people taking a picture in front of a big pun mural.
They love it.
Yeah.
They do hip hop tours, not ran by black people, of course.
And like literally my mom got offended and I got offended with her. I was like, yo. So literally I just wanted to make that comment of like, just seeing it, there's a part of it that the person in me that wants success wants to take part in it because I'm from here and I feel like if it's being brought here, then I need to take part in it.
Absolutely.
But then there's a part of me that literally makes my blood boil because seeing it happen, where y'all been the last 28 years? You know what I mean?
Hello, because we spent our years in high school fleeing the Bronx and hanging out. We would go to buttfuck Brooklyn, pata hanging out because the gentrification was right. And this is and I'm curious, what high school did you go to?
I was at Monsignor Scanlon Catholic School.
We went to LaGuardia. I guess very almost complete opposite. LaGuardia, completely liberal, like wild, you know, with a lot of white privileged kids, a lot of them. And so what we got was like before, because at that point the Bronx wasn't being gentrified or anything. So what we saw was through our friends in this new world, an insight to a different New York than the Bronx, New York that we grew up in. And so we wanted to be like, please, I've been brunching for years and like I've been doing all these sorts of things because these kids had that more elite upbringing, and so they are like how you said how your parents used to take you out to eat and you had that costumbre. They had different costumbres, and so we would be in the shits and we'd real mixy and like everywhere but the Bronx. Hang out in the Bronx, it'd be like, why? Like, you know, and nobody ever wanted to come here. And for me, at least personally, I've developed this thing of like, oh, it's a burden. Like the Bronx is a burden for people to come visit me in, for me to even engage and hang out in, because all it is el tigueraje and all that shit, and I'm not down with that. So, you know, and I was smoking weed, but I was smoking out of bowls with white people. You know, I was not smoking blunts and drinking honey.
With
Yeah. I still
leaf.
you know, but like this separation that I was able to do. And now that I've come into my adulthood and like I understand things like gentrification and I do care about my community in a way because I had an aha moment about what I was internalizing in high school. Now I'm back here and I'm like, shit, like I still want my bougie coffee. I still want like all of these luxuries, and it does make me happy to see people of color behind some of these initiatives. But there's a layer behind that.
Yeah.
And it's the layer of how do they get started and how do they get funded? And this is where this Gentefication piece comes in, is that, you know, you might fund a shop that, you know, is representative of the Bronx and its culture, but you're also funding that big luxury building in which all these, you know, gentrifiers are going to come in and they're going to dictate the culture of this area because they're the ones who are bringing in the most, you know, money into this economy. And so they dictate it. So if they don't like something, it doesn't matter that the vecina who's been living here for 30-something years, you know, cares about the space in a particular way. It's not about her. She's not the one whose money you're after. You're after the people who you're corralling in. And that is so...
But it's also important to note, and it's an unfortunate matter, you know Soho.
Yeah.
Do you remember what Soho used to be?
It used to be a bunch of art punks and stuff like it was not this bougie.
In general, whether we like it or not, it's something that we have to come to terms with. Artists are the leaders of gentrification. we clean up spaces, we make them pretty and cool, and then people move in after, and then they take it and push us out. Yeah. But we are actually a part of that development and process. So it's something I had to come to terms with as like, so I had a different experience. I was out and about, not because I went to a public school like LaGuardia, but because I was an artist from early on.
Right.
And I was amongst middle class income students, being from a Catholic school background. So I was always up and about, and I was always traveling and like heading out from early on. So I never had this separation of the Bronx. I don't want to be a part of it because I lived that life being from the Bronx, you know?
Right.
Like in high school, all my friends had cars, even though we were from the Bronx. So that was the life.
That's crazy.
That's like,
that's crazy.
So it was normal for me. So for me, when I came back from living abroad and traveling and doing a master's in London, it was a passionate thing of mine, but I was like, I want to end up like somehow doing the damn thing in the Bronx. Yeah. So, but for me, it was just a part of the process. I knew I'd always end up back here for a period of time to give back. But I had to come to terms with the fact that I was willingly giving back to a process and a system that was going to also work against the very people I wanted to help. And it brings me back to my earlier point, and it really is it's something I'm really passionate about. How do we avoid the funders and give the money, make that money come from ourselves, from our communities?
Right.
J-Lo, where you at? Chica.
Word.
Yo, honestly, nah, but honestly,
same neighborhood, Chica. Hola.
And bitch, you out in Miami doing that fucking Super Bowl and shit.
I'm not gonna be shady, Chica. I'm trying to like.
I love her. No. I love her, but that's also something that I've constantly thought of.
Yeah,
like
J-Lo, come through, boo boo.
If
like
I ever when I get to J-Lo status, the first thing I'm gonna do is open a school in the Bronx. You know, like the first thing that I'm gonna do is or foundation or this or that. Like that's one thing that I will say, and I am a J-Lo fan.
Me too.
Or buy a building, create the first artist housing of the Bronx.
I'm really down for some artist housing shit. I've actually had
West Beth is in is in the West Village. It's a real building. The oldest, largest artist housing, literally in the heart of the beautiful West Village. The Martha Graham School where I trained is on the 11th floor, where former Cunningham studios were. And so I had the luxury of like going to this beautiful West Village for all of my dance training years. And in a building full of, like, they're all aging out. Like, a lot of them are older population, but only broke. Like, we're talking $500 rents. Wow. Broke artists. It's for that. Right. Like, what would it look like if one of our people would create that for the Bronx? Right. Like, there's money in our people. There's money in our communities. How do we make that go back to our people?
Right. And even in the like this idea of bringing the dollar in. So like, let's assume a lot of these awesome new Bronx ventures that we're seeing pop up are funded by the very people that are, bringing in these condominiums and the gentrification. But isn't there a way in which, and this is the part where I'm always like dancing the line of like, because I understand grassroots movements, and there are some people who are like, I don't give a fuck how black that owner is. I'm not buying coffee from there because of who funded them, right? And like, I understand that because there's almost like this this stubbornness of like, if we give in certain areas, we're giving them an inch and they will always take a mile. And how many times do we need to give them an inch before, and the money always goes back to them, right? And so like, I understand that fight and that struggle. And I believe that in order for that tactic to work, it has to have numbers behind it, meaning a lot of people need to agree to make that the case in order for it to have the level of impact that they hope.
But not enough people have that education.
But not enough people have that
education. So what about me when I want to start my business?
Exactly. So and then that's where I stand. My foot is on the other side of this, is like, pero coño, if I tomorrow had an opportunity to open a media center, like Ladies Who Bronche Media Center, and like, I could create studio space and have it at affordable prices for, young artists to come in and record and do things. And then I can do empowerment workshops and all that stuff. And then the person who's giving me the money is the person who's responsible for that building structure that's already going up behind me, whether or not I existed in this space or not, and then like, but then it's that question of, pero diablo, do I hold out? Because where am I going to get that money from?
If you don't make the media center, then you get pushed out by another person who will. So like,
somebody will always say yes. And so it's such a conflict because I actually genuinely 100% understand both sides. And at the end of the day, I'm not mad because if it's me or like I said, these other businesses, if they get a cut of it, they weren't going to get a cut of shit, because we also sometimes in our community have a bad habit, and not so much amongst the artist community, but people outside the artist world have a bad habit of, oh, that motherfucker made that shit from the Bronx. That shit's probably cheap. That shit's probably not as the same quality. And they don't regard what we create in the space with the same love and like brand trust as Louis and all these like big brands when we're talking about fashion, or like these restaurants that aren't even that fancy, but because they got a great critics picks, now that's where we're going to go have our brunches and do our celebrations. Like we will constantly follow a thought pattern outside of our own because we don't trust that what we create here has the same value. And that's a different level of education that we have to sort of have and like teach each other, is that like, if we want to make this area just as cool as that, we can do it with ourselves and not wait for other people to tell us it's cool. But we have to, again, reinvest that dollar into what we do, because then if that's the case, then as a business owner, if I'm like, yo, they don't know who my funder is, but I'm making X amount of dollars and this person's getting a cut as of now, but if I cut them out, I already have the clout to support the business, so I don't need them anymore. So when this lease is up, or when, you know, the moment comes where the contracts, because there's always a moment where contracts have to be reassessed, that I can be like, you know what, I'm good, fuck y'all. You know, and if they're like, oh, well, we're going to raise this rent. Oh, well, that's good because I got my client base. So you go ahead and do what you got to do.
Again.
But we're not there yet.
It brings me back to my point, because I'm going to repeat it over and over to everyone until it gets to everyone. What if we put that money back in our community? We bought that fucking building, so we don't got to pay them that rent.
Right.
It's that big. What I'm asking of us is that big.
Right.
I'm not asking us to just support small businesses. I'm saying, what would it look like if we got together, put our money together, and bought those 2 buildings, and the only thing one building is going to exist for is a business on each floor. The other one we're going to rent out affordably, whatever that's going to look like.
Whatever, yeah.
We got to think that big. We got to buy property.
Right.
It's not just about buying a hoodie off of a homie. We got to really, really think longevity, long term. Yeah. And that's how you're really going to create that equity for your community. And that's how you're really going to, I think, make a long lasting impact. Yeah. We got to think like the other people. I'm not kidding. Yeah. When you see like, I'm saying it as a shout out. When you see these Jewish, these Korean communities, you know, existing, you see the Amish, like, it doesn't matter who moves into Pennsylvania. Nobody's going to push out the Amish. Right. Because they only sell their land back to their people. Right. They're like, you guys can gentrify Lancaster. I was just over there teaching. They're like, that's fine.
Yeah, you do what you do. We
still here. Yeah. So we got to think about how to really mark our space and make that possible for our people to mark their space.
Yeah. Yeah. And I wonder, like, what do we do in lieu of that? Like, as we build to get, because that requires, like, we all need to get the same level of education and understanding how these processes work, right? So we can band together, because, you know, we can do one building, or we can have several pockets of different community getting different spaces. And we've
been doing that. Look at Sociedades. Hello? Latinos know how to do that. We just have to think about it in a greater scale.
Right.
Like, remember, I don't know about everyone else, but my parents used to put money into societies. Like, that's what the Sociedad is.
Wait,
that's what I mean.
Was the Lions Club a society?
No, but like, I'm talking about like, my tío used to run a Sociedad. Right. 100 people used to pay every month into it.
Yeah, they're like
and along the way, people, susus, you get like a cut of that. Yeah. Like, mad illegal, mad under the table. You don't know who's going to run away with your money. Right. But you trusted that, like, on the 4th of April, in 3 months, I'm getting my 6K. Yeah. That I will little bit. Yeah. So how do we think about that in the grand scheme of things? Right. On a larger scale.
Right. Because and financial literacy is so important, man. I have to tell you, because even being part of something like that, you really have to have a strong sense of financial literacy to understand what happens on February 4th when you get that money, right? You get that 6K, but how do you make it so that it's not constantly, I have it now and then I don't have it? How do you make it so that you put it in an investment? So like the suso te dio 6K, pero what you did with that 6K now paid you back some more. So like, you know what I mean? And so like, that's how you get to build wealth and equity, because you can't make certain financial, like some things require down payments and certain things, and you don't have that at that moment. These societies give you that like financial kick in the moment to do that. But we need to make sure that when we're having these moments, we actually understand how to do it the best way possible, so that these sociedades can actually have the longer term effect that Megan's talking about. Yeah, for sure. I mean, and for me, it's like, it's kind of sucks too, because I find myself in this position of always wanting, first of all, we should always do our research on like who we're buying from and stuff. I mean, like I said, like when we talk about fashion, for example, like we have these Louis brands and all these big fucking people out in Paris embarrassing us with fake cornrows. And like every year that there's a fashion week or something, I wait for the headline of which designer did the really fucked up, the cornrow, the cornrow wig.
Oh my God.
You know?
Covering the ears?
Right. They saw Cardi do it once in that video with Bruno Mars. And then they
I just don't understand the choices.
I mean, I put like things
it
over my
horrible.
ears because my ears are big, but it wouldn't ever be a wig.
Not a cornrow wig.
With the track,
right,
like,
with the tracks all showing. So outside of the fact that it is messy as fuck, and don't nobody be out here looking that crazy.
Like,
Number
like
one,
an avatar,
right? Like nobody be out here looking that crazy. But like, you know, just really this idea of like, but we still buy and glorify these brands. Right. But we will not turn around and like, listen, people have mixed feelings about a lot of different fashion lines and things that are coming out of the Bronx. But like, they're the ones who are like really trying to like keep like have our voice be ours, and they are of our community, and you know, but then we don't want to support them because of who funds them. But then it's like, but what is Louis doing?
You know,
like what is everybody else doing? Fuck that. What fast food are you eating
pick your
that funds Trump? Let's talk about that. You have every day-to-day choices that you make when you walk into the bodega that are worse than the choice that you'll make when you're buying local. But then how do we do that and then still hold the local people accountable and say, hey, I understand your journey. I feel like there is a middle ground that we can find at some point, but there's a big gap that needs to be filled first. And it's this financial literacy, and it's the understanding the long game.
It's also the sensitivity movement happening. Like everyone all of a sudden became so sensitive overnight that they can't fucking pull their thumb out their ass and focus on the big picture.
Yeah, sometimes it's like, who do we attack first? And it's easier to do it to your people in your community because it's like, oh, you right here, so I can hold you accountable right here. But bro, you still shopping in spots that are oppressing both of y'all, let alone you. Both of you people are being oppressed by the same person, but you want to fight with the person next to you, and you don't want to.
Who's succeeding a little.
Yeah, whose successes aren't even as glamorous as you might appear, and they do still have to bust their ass, and they do have to often be one-man shops, right? And like one-person shops who are like running around getting shit done because they can't afford to have a full functioning team. They don't have factories. They don't have a lot of these resources, but we're quick to be like, no, to them. And I feel like there is a gap, and we need to fill it, because there's a way in which if we can actually be in good conversation with our Gentefiers, our Gentefiers can be our bigger partners in larger efforts.
Not be offended by being called out or being whatever.
Yeah, right. It goes both ways.
On them.
Yeah, to be able to have the dialogue with us. Yeah. 100%. So any favorite brands or artists right now coming out the Bronx that we should check out?
Favorite brands or artists? Oh God!
Or organizations. I always like shouting out BAD. I know we were talking about
talk about BAD. BAD never gets old, and I'm going to tell you why BAD never gets old. There is no organization like it in all of this fabulous city of New York.
Yes.
We're talking about an organization, Bronx Academy of Art and Dance, that exists to support trans, LGBTQA, Latinos, Black, Brown artists. There's no organization that starts the sentence with that.
Yes, come on.
There's no safe spaces, especially. I don't think. I'm gonna say no, and then y'all can like talk
do
about
research
me later.
later.
But I'm just gonna put it out there. Who's looking out for trans community right now?
Yeah, in the Bronx, so openly.
In the city,
and with
we're talking about 5 boroughs.
Yeah,
even in cool Brooklyn, where everybody thinks that they're coming up with the next best thing. Like, please,
no safe spaces for trans people.
Let's start with that, and the non-binary community as well. Yeah. Like, they just made a call. They're putting together a concert, and they want people like queer identifying choreographers only to apply. And I was able to send that out to like friends of mine in Queens, friends of mine in Brooklyn. I'm like, hey, you should apply for this. I can't.
Yes.
Right.
They're hanging a picture of me in their trans gallery.
Yeah.
I hope it's the one of you in your underwear.
Right.
No, it's not. It's not.
Damn.
I think it's gonna
That
be
would've
the
been
one
good.
in the coat, but it'll be just as epic.
As epic.
I
You
just
are
think that
epic.
it's like really cool that like my picture's gonna be there.
Absolutely. No, it is cool because
So
it's,
bad.
it's a space of legacy.
Yes.
And I do, definitely go out and support Bad. Bad's incredible. Also, their fundraiser every year is that carnival that they do.
Oh my god, yes. Oh my god,
It's
it was
incredible.
it's so fun.
Yeah.
And
Better each year.
Yeah.
the gala
Yeah.
in October.
Yes.
Ugh.
Yeah, so definitely look out for Bad. And just, I guess the big takeaway from here is that, it's fine to sort of struggle with where you stand around this idea of gentefication. I think we all are pretty much on the same page about gentrification,
Yeah.
both the good, the bad, and ugly of it. But like, I think the conversation around gentrification is one to be had because though the gentrification is coming, it hasn't finished yet and it's not halfway through. So there's still enough time for us as a community to stop being so shady and petty with each other and actually try to understand from both perspectives what is happening here so that we can actually truly take our community back.
That thing we didn't do during the last elections, we should try to do
Do
it
it
in
now.
our communities first before
Right.
the next election because
Right.
it's coming.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's another topic for another day, Megan.
That's just a reminder to get a little more understanding before we have to go out in November.
Please vote, guys. I know that's
Please,
another.
don't stay home.
Please just
Nah,
show
nah,
up.
that
I know
ass.
it feels like
Please.
I get it. I know it feels like it's not gonna do anything, but y'all,
I disagree.
We gotta. It's
It
like
really, really makes an impact
But
when you don't do
we've
it.
never actually really shown up. So how do we really know it doesn't work? Like I hate when people do that because I'm like, bro, I get your logic, but do you know in practice we've actually never all shown up and had it proven to us that us all showing up means nothing? So can we try showing up this year? And then if it's fucked up, okay, now I'll shut the fuck up.
Yeah,
we'll go back to the drawing board.
plan,
We'll plan again. But let me see us all
what
vote
would it
first
look
and
like?
then see what happens.
What would it look like if all the oppressed people in this country voted?
Yeah, and in the LGBTQAI plus community right now, I think it was like only a third of that whole population here in the United States is registered to vote right now for this election. Only a third, and that community is getting attacked and destroyed up and down in this administration. And I am
Daily.
terrified that only a third are prepared to vote. And by the way, that doesn't mean they're all voting Democrat.
But also, if they're not voting, it is for a reason that attacked people feel like they can't. So even amongst our brown bodies, there are privileged people, and I know that
Yep.
I'm one of them. We need to show up for our brothers and sisters.
Yeah, absolutely.
There's a reason those people feel attacked. They feel like their voices are not heard. People with big mouths on this side of the spectrum need to get up and get active.
Yeah, absolutely.
We really need to.
So on that note, any shout outs, any plugs that you want to give?
Yeah, all day, every day.
You gave me the duh, of course.
I want to give a shout out to my mommy and papi who I had breakfast with at 8:30 this morning because my schedule's so crazy that they got up on a Sunday just to see me.
Aw, I love
for my mommy and
that.
daddy.
Yes, mommy, papi.
I want to give a shout out to mi gente. We out here and we're doing the damn thing with a smile on our face all the time,
Yes.
with good spirits. No one can defeat us, and we're always on the up and up. And all of us from all the islands, all the little places. And I just find us to be such a magical people. And I always say mi gente because I envision one day when I accept my Oscar.
Yes,
like
when
my
you
speech
accept it.
is gonna have like a little section to like dedicated to pa mi gente, mi Latinos unidos que somos. So I always like give it in a real shout out as practice for that day.
Yes, it's practice.
Yeah, and yeah, like I want to give a shout out to all the jaded, hardworking, active humans, right? Like people in our community. I think it's so easy to just be like, guys, but we got to show up. And like, I just want to say we're all exhausted, but like, I see you out there. I know we're fucking busting our ass to do our thing. And there's so many more of us than there are of the others. And I don't know, just remember like to love. And like, that really does triumph a lot.
Yes. And then where can we find you?
On the social interwebs.
On IG, if you want like all the art stuff, is at MEGAN_CURET. If you also want to see like world traveling vegan bullshit, then it's without the underscores. So I have like two. I made it easy.
Yes.
And
Megan CURET.
CURET in Spanish, CURET for the rest of you. And Yeah, hit me up. Let's collaborate. Slide into my
Yes.
DMs. Only if you want to like legit collaborate. Don't just slide into my DMs because I'm not about that.
Yes, and we'll look out for your shows and all your travels and all that wonderful stuff. And you can find us on IG at Ladies Who Bronche, on Twitter at Ladies Bronche, Facebook, all the fucking platforms you can listen on. Thank you for joining us today, and until next time, bronche.
Bronche, bronche. That's how we say brunch.
Here's to the ladies who say basic with their lunch.
You want that bochinche?
Paquete con pinche. You know what they said?
Got too busy glasses clinking.
Aquí en esta mesa se respeta como ñón.
Si la copa está llena, yo te doy la bendición.
So what if we get vouchers?
We from the Bronx.
That's it.
Don't get it twisted.
We be going to Manhattan. Be a
Be
queen.
a boss.
Ladies who brunch popping off.
Hey, we pop.